Hi everyone, today I will be presenting a procedural video on how to successfully paint a watercolour fan art piece. We will be creating a colour-based layering piece which includes a whimsical array of colours and brush techniques. This particular style of painting is one that resonates strongly with me. I will be replicating a piece I completed a few weeks ago, here to the left. Firstly, we need to select the type of watercolour paper, and depending on the grade and intensity of the watercolours you are using will determine the quality and type of paper you choose to use, as it can negatively influence the quality of your work. Today I will be using Archer's watercolour paper, which has a smooth palette on one side and the opposite being slightly textured, with a GSM of 300 coarse. Excellent absorbency when blending colours, without affecting the surface of the paper. Other watercolour paper types I would recommend you use if you are aiming for a more textured finish to your piece or limiting the blending of colours are Fabriano in a medium coarse with 185 GSM, which is the thickness of paper which would be most ideal for this choice. The quality of your paper will determine how each pigment responds to your chosen surface and will affect the durability of the piece. Secondly, we will need to source and mix the colours we will need for this painting. I will be using Winsor & Newton's palette of paints today. Next, we will need to dilute the colours we will be selecting for this piece. Diluting them with water ensures the colours do not produce a vibrant and artificial shade. Prior to painting this piece, I will be using Winsor & Newton's natural long-handed bristle to create a thin water wash for the top section of the paper. This creates a dampened surface, easy for blending colours quickly for the first undercoat of colour. Having your watercolour brush prepared and ready with water would be advisable, as it is a specialist tool which needs to be used carefully without becoming too dry in the process. This particular water brush is used for blending with a larger quantity of water, which enables more control and direction of brush stroke. Now I'm going to take the tip of my brush and dip it into the diluted cobalt light turquoise. By using the tip of my brush, I will be dabbing in the far right and left corner. By now you will see the aqua blue bleeding into the page. I scattered things randomly and sporadically. Leaving, I left white sections as the layers will bleed, and undercoats are not necessarily needed in certain sections. To protect white areas, I am using masking fluid by National Arts Materials. This is applied in areas that I wish to leave white. I will be dabbing the odd dot and speck to leave among the clouded section. You will need to complete this step with the first few layers. While the first few layers are drying, you can remove the masking fluid within a few hours of finishing the background layers. You may have a preconceived plan, or you can leave it up to your imagination. As long as you go along and experiment, each person will use a slightly different idea, but there are certain elements of creativity you must follow to complete it yourself. The effect that you are trying to achieve is cloudy elements, like the top section here, which bleed into each other. To achieve this, I repeated with Viridin, a slightly tinged indigo with a hint of black, creating a more intense colour. To achieve this, you have a palette with diluted indigo and black, which you then dip into both, picking it up and then you putting it into a clean part of the palette so you have mixed in a separate area. Once a layer is applied, wait about 10 to 15 minutes to air dry. Then you can leave it to dry. I would recommend this alternative to using a hairdryer, as the heat causes the watercolour to run, which ruins the effect on the page. Once it is dry, then the next layers can be applied. By now I would remove the masking fluid at this point. I used a really thin watercolour to begin the hair strokes, which I started within the base colours of the head to blend. To achieve this effect, push down on the brush quite firmly to begin with, and then release pressure as the brush flicks out. This creates a thinner line at the end. Then I moved into the base coat for the bottom section, where I used Terra Verte colour, a grey-green mix shade with lots of water. Lastly, I started off in each corner of her back with a darkened shade of grey and a Verte green paint, and diluted as I moved into the centre of the body. This created a shadowed effect on her back, which added more contrast and depth to this piece. Then for her face, I applied an aqua blue and green mix together, which were diluted at this stage. I started to experiment with different colours and tints to try and achieve the effect I was after. I then repeated with the tail and arms. Potter's pink and cobalt blue were mixed to achieve highlights for her tail and show where she was embracing it. Then using an extremely thin brush, I drew on some scales and placed these out to achieve a slightly cartoon effect which incorporates a sense of realism. Fine line pencil was used for the facial details and touch-ups were done to finish this piece off.